Good evening, and thank you to those in the audience and to those viewing us on Shaw TV and Local 2 for joining us. Our 2014 municipal election candidate awareness forums are being brought to you in partnership with the Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce, Algoma University, Shaw TV, and Local 2. My name is Dr. Trevor Cheer from Algoma University, and I will be your moderator for this evening's 2014 Municipal Election Candidate Forum with our candidates in Ward 6. My role as moderator will be to run tonight's meeting and keep us on schedule. Our panelists and screeners are from the Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce and Algoma University, and from Local 2. They may be posing the questions to our candidates. They will be posing the questions to our candidates. Our panelists and screeners this evening are Eva Heiderman, Carter Vance, Riley Smith from Algoma University, and Carol Martin from Local 2. Seating and speaking order for tonight's candidates was decided by a random draw, which was conducted with the candidates this evening prior to airing tonight's session. The format for this evening is to allow each candidate 2 minutes for opening remarks. Our panelists will be posing questions from the Chamber and its members, from Algoma University, and from the audience. All questions from the audience will be collected in advance. If you have a question for any of these candidates, please fill out the form you were handed at the door. Put up your hand and one of our volunteers will collect your question. Questions will be asked to candidates on a rotating basis. Please note that due to time constraints, not all questions will be posed. Each candidate will have the opportunity to answer all questions, and each will have 1 minute to respond to each question. Shelley Barrich, Chamber General Manager, will be our timekeeper for this session. For opening remarks, she will provide the candidates with a warning bell at the 1 minute and 50-second mark, and candidates will have 10 seconds to wrap up their comments. For the questions and closing remarks, a warning bell will be given at the 50-second mark, and candidates will have 10 seconds to wrap up their comments. Let us begin with opening statements. We will begin with Mr. Bryan Dumanski.
Good evening and thank you, Chamber of Commerce, Algoma University, Shaw TV, and Local 2. Hope I didn't miss anybody. Good evening. My name is Bryan Dumanski. Hello, friends and family in Ward 6. I worked diligently over the years with current councillor, soon to be retired, Frank Manzo Sr. He's taught me many things about municipal politics. For that, I am forever grateful. I understand that the role of the councillor is to ensure good quality essential services and uphold rules and regulations to ensure our drinking water and roads remain safe. In short, a councillor is largely responsible for the health, safety, and welfare of the constituents that they represent. A councillor must scrutinize the city's budget line by line, not rubber stamp. Air pollution in Bayview, flooding west of Gooley Avenue. There's no money for air filtration systems or stormwater retention ponds, but millions for deep water harbors and costly storm sewer infrastructure. The tail is wagging the dog in this city, and the impression that I am getting in speaking with people in Ward 6 is that we are being ran from the top down. This is unacceptable. Look, I don't have any political or corporate affiliation. I'm here to represent Ward 6 and Ward 6 alone and the betterment of this community. Some of the remarks that I hear going from door to door are the transparency is as clear as mud. Rules and regulations are being ignored. These are major concerns with citizens of Ward 6, and it's a wonder why people don't vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. Next opening statement will come from Mr. Joe Krmpotich.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Krmpotich, your current Ward 6 councillor. I was born and raised in Sault Ste. Marie and have lived in Ward 6 for 25 years. My wife Sherry and I have 2 children. I've been locally educated and graduated from Algoma University in 1993. I am an employee of SR Algoma and currently working as a union coordinator for the United Steelworkers. I am a member of the following boards and committees: the Sioux Airport Board, the Sioux and District Social Services Administration Board, the Sioux Regional Conservation Authority, the Steelworkers Community Services Committee, the first Vice President of the Sault Ste. Marie District Labor Council, the Sioux Best for Kids Committee, and the Local Immigration Partnership. I speak with Ward 6 constituents daily, handling a variety of their complaints, ranging from ditching to road resurfacing and numerous other concerns. In the past 4 years, my organizational skills have been instrumental in helping to solve a myriad of problems for Ward 6 constituents. I have worked with Councillor Frank Manzo, who is endorsing my re-election. Frank has publicly thanked me for my help and stated that we worked well as a team. It was a pleasure working with Frank, and I know everyone will miss him. To me, it's simple: keep our taxes low and provide good services to the people we represent. I have learned a lot from municipal politics, who to talk to and how to get things done. I have developed a good working relationship with city commissioners, managers, and employees to better serve the needs of the Ward 6 constituents. If re-elected, I will continue to help develop policies that promote our ward and community and support viable economic business opportunities going forward. I will continue to promote activities directed to newcomers to our community. I will also continue to work with our youth at our area secondary and post-secondary schools promoting USW scholarships. I believe our future is one we all have to create together.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. Our next opening statement comes from Mr. Ross Romano.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by thanking the Chamber of Commerce, Algoma University, Shaw, and Local 2 for putting on this forum tonight. I'd also like to thank our moderator, Mr. Chair, and the audience here tonight and those watching at home. For some time, I've dreamed of a way that I could make a difference in this community. I've always been interested in pursuing municipal affairs and felt that I was at a stage in my life and career where I was in a position to offer something back to this community and help make it a more livable, affordable, and functional ward and city to be a part of. When I refer to livable, I mean that it is imperative that our council tackle the serious economic and infrastructure issues that we face. I am committed to representing your concerns to the fullest of my abilities to get the priorities important to you addressed. Affordable means reducing our spending to keep our taxes at or below the rate of inflation. To make your life more affordable, it is necessary that council look for continuous improvements in the way we administer the budget. We need to eliminate wasteful spending and constantly look to find more efficient ways to do things, because it's the right thing to do, to be respectful of you, the taxpayer, and of your money. Finally, functional means that the next City Council must come to work at City Hall together as a team. Councillors cannot work against each other. Building a great city means people working together, finding solutions for a common good. I have learned that you can't conclude because of your own opinions that the guy over there is wrong, or I can't work with him, or I can't work with her. We need civic action, where a banker can sit down with an anti-poverty activist, sitting next to a professor, sitting next to someone from a labor union, who all have terrific ideas on how to make our city better. That is where positive results come from. Getting people to share their expertise and ideas while working together. That is how we build a great ward and a great city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Our next opening statement comes from Mr. Ozzie Grandinetti.
Good evening. Thank you to those who are joining us tonight at home and in the gallery, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, Algoma University, Shaw Cable, Local 2 for organizing this again. It's great to be given the opportunity to address the people of Sault Ste. Marie. My name is Ozzie Grandinetti, and I am a lifelong resident of Ward 6 in Sault Ste. Marie. I grew up in Bayview and continue to live in Ward 6 with my wife Cindy and our 2 children, Aaron and Kyle. My love for the community has always kept me rooted in this area, and I want to give the opportunity back. Tonight, I stand here to speak to you, not just as a Ward 6 candidate looking for your vote, but I stand here as one of you, a resident of Ward 6 who loves this community and who wants to help it grow. Having lived in Ward 6 for all my life, I understand the challenges we all face, and I want the opportunity to help you and our community flourish, not just for us, but for our children and their future. I previously served as Ward 6 councillor in 2006 to 2010 and was able to contribute to bringing about positive change to our community. I was instrumental in establishing the West End Community Centre. I supported many projects that helped improve our community with new and exciting economic activity. My vision for Ward 6 and Sault Ste. Marie is to bring planned and responsible change to our community. As an elected official, I will work with the community to achieve this. I want to ensure Sault Ste. Marie flourishes and that we can create a well-balanced, strong, healthy, and vibrant community. I will work to ensure that our tax dollars are spent carefully and wisely, and will do my best to secure a 1% or less tax increase. I will encourage partnership to create new development opportunities in Sault Ste. Marie and to foster economic growth and job creation while protecting the public interest. I will support the Hub Trail Development Project to ensure that the current trail system linking is enhanced, extended throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. Our final opening statement for this evening's forum comes from Mrs. Wanda McQueen.
Thank you, Dr. Chair. Good evening, and thank you to our sponsors for hosting this evening. My name is Wanda McQueen. My husband Bill and I have 2 daughters and 2 grandchildren. I'm a third-generation Ward 6 resident. I have had the honor of being a trustee for Ward 6, advocating for children, and working in the healthcare field with seniors. I'm putting my name forward because I care about the concerns of Ward 6 and the future of Sault Ste. Marie. Our children are our most valuable resource, and we hear a lot about wanting to bring them home. Our children will continue to live and work elsewhere unless we have something to offer them. A life where there is sustainable jobs and activities to do with their families. A lot of our seniors are on fixed incomes with no increases in inflation, and they're telling me my savings will only last for so long. They're having a hard time paying the increases, whether it's taxes, lighting, heating, or food costs. Our seniors and all of our citizens want to enjoy a life that gives them quality of life. Sault Ste. Marie has so much potential, and I believe it is the perfect place to do business. We boast of being naturally gifted and strategically located. We should have a competitive advantage. We have an international bridge, we have a Trans-Canada highway going through our city, yet we have the highest unemployment rate in northeastern Ontario. 24%, or 1 in 6 of our children now live in low-income situations. This percentage is staggering. Our community needs to grow. There is a wealth of information from our business community. We need to be proactive and reach out. Growing our economy to me means being aggressive in selling our community and the good things we have to offer. Our citizens have some very good ideas, and they have some very valid concerns. Walking the ward, I'm hearing taxes versus services, potholes, cracks in the road, sidewalks, street lights. The amount of time it takes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. We'll now move into the question and answer session, and I'll invite our panel to ask the first question of this evening's forum.
This question comes from the Chamber of Commerce. What would you do to protect the quality of water in Sault Ste. Marie?
Thank you. We begin answers to question 1 with Mr. Dumanski.
Before you protect water in Sault Ste. Marie, you have to value its resource. I can count back to a time not too long ago. I think it was the biggest issue in Ward 6. Regulations 176 were ignored regarding a proposed development out by the airport. Robert's Rule of Order was falsified that would have stopped that whole process. You're falsifying parliamentary procedure, and the board knew about it. Mayor Amoroso knew about it, but nobody did anything about it. Why? Who knows why? I don't know why. I think I called every legal office in town about that one, but no one returned my call, or there was a conflict of interest. So just like anything, in order to save something, to protect something, you have to value it. And I don't think the value is there. Plus, corporate and political interests are taking precedent over people's health and safety in the city. That's got to stop.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. Mr. Krmpotich.
Thank you. Building a vibrant and thriving community means smart planning and development with special consideration for how we care for our citizens and we preserve our heritage. Public water and wastewater is key, so everyone in our community are assured fresh, safe drinking water as a basic right. We have to continue moving forward with our water issues, and we have to make sure and ensure every day that people got safe drinking water. What's the first thing you do when you get up in the morning? You turn your lights on and you get in the shower. And it's very important that we ensure that going forward, that water is clean and it's safe for everyone to drink. And we've been doing that as a council going forward, except for the brown water issues that are going on in other areas. Ward 6 isn't perfect, but our water over there is doing not too bad. I do get complaints about odor, and we're dealing with them as we go forward. Our future is our children. They need the same that we have with our water in our past.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. Mr. Romano.
Thank you very much. I have spent considerable amount of time researching the issue surrounding our water problems in Sault Ste. Marie, which commenced in approximately 2011. In fact, it commenced even before that, which led to a change in the way the PUC delivered our water system. I've been knocking on doors now for 4 weeks in this community of Ward 6, and knocked on several thousand doors at this point, and I've only had 2 people address water as a concern to me over the course of the last 4 weeks. All of that being said, PUC has established a 2-stage process to rectifying problems with our water. Stage 1 is anticipated to be completed by the end of this year. A number of people will see a lot of the construction projects going on throughout the city in order to resolve that. If necessary, Stage 2 will commence in the following year and will last through into potentially 2016. And I think that until we see what is resolved there, whether or not the problem is resolved, we may need to look at all their alternatives at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Mr. Grandinetti.
Thank you. Up until recently, we haven't really had any water issues until the PUC decided to change the system over, I believe back in 2010 or 2011. As for council, I think that we should have to work closely with the PUC to preserve our water quality and have regular updates on where we're at with this new system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. Mrs. McQueen.
Thank you very much. I understand our infrastructure is old and upgrading is needed. It was legislated that water testing be done, and our water shows high levels of lead. So back in 2007, the Safe Water Act came into effect. I have been walking the ward, and I've also heard about the odor. And with talking to the PUC, they're hoping that that issue is cleared up by the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. I'll now invite the panel to ask the second question of this evening's forum.
This question comes from the audience. How do you think council handled the proposed wetland/Point Estates development issue?
Thank you. We'll begin with Mr. Krmpotich.
Thank you for the question. I believe City Council handled it actually quite well, and the decision was made, and it's currently at the OMB, and what the OMB decides, every one of us will have to agree with it. So basically, I agree with Council's decision, basically to send it to the OMB. It's in the OMB. We expect to hear something back by November, and having said that, we'll support the decision that comes back from the OMB.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. Mr. Romano.
Thank you very much. A few things to consider in this type of a situation. Now, first and foremost, this is something that previous council dealt with. It was determined by council that obviously it was turned down, and the process is now going to the OMB, and in a few weeks, I understand a decision will be provided. We need to bear in mind, and I would like to bear in mind, that this was an issue that affected a number of property owners in the area. And in addition to that, it's an issue that could potentially affect the wetlands in the area. This is something that requires a great deal of thought and care in terms of reviewing. There were a number of expert reports, which I will be honest and say that I have not reviewed. However, that being the case, City Council's decision not to go ahead with this project and allow the OMB to make the decision allows the decision to be handled by the experts with the expertise in the field, and I think that's appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Mr. Grandinetti.
I believe City Council made a big mistake in denying this project. The facts are in the science. All the studies came in that were good, which supported a subdivision in that planned, in that so-called wetland. which isn't provincially significant, because that's the Point Protection Association's argument that it is provincially significant, which it isn't. I believe that anything that the planning department supports, which they support at 100%, and they do their homework very carefully, council should not deny. There's millions of dollars at stake over there in development costs and jobs. So we'll see what the OMB says, and we'll have to live with it when they make their decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. Mrs. McQueen.
Thank you. This issue is extremely emotional and divisive. And I feel that there are more questions than answers. And as Mr. Grandinetti said, it wasn't stated that it was provincially significant, but it only missed by about 80 points. So I think there are a lot more questions, and it will be going to the OMB, and I believe there will be a decision on November 18th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. Mr. Dumanski.
I think that council chose the right decision. There was too many unanswered questions. The report came back saying that under peer review, the developer's plans did not, quote, hold water. As far as the particulars on who's going to pay for the flushing at 33 million gallons a day, that's what the builders would be left holding the bag on that, or the people that build there. I disagree with Mr. Grandinetti that science was on their side. In fact, why would you do a wetland evaluation? It's usually done, if you're going to study birds, it's done in nesting season, not in August. So there are some questionable statistics and data regarding that development, but everybody on well water should be watching this very carefully.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. I'll now invite our panel to ask the third question of tonight's forum.
This question comes from Algoma University. Do you have a strategy to combat youth out-migration in our community?
Thank you. We'll begin with Mr. Romano.
Thank you. Youth outward migration has been a problem in Sault Ste. Marie for many years. It was an issue when I went to university here at Algoma in 2001, and it was sometime prior to that. Ultimately, youth outward migration stems from problems with our economy. If we improve our economy, then we have more jobs. If we have more jobs, there's more of a reason for our youth to stay here. If we have more jobs, people are spending more money, we're going to have a more vibrant community, we're going to have a more vibrant downtown, and it's a place that students will want to come to and students will want to stay in. The only way we're going to fix that is if we stop spending at the rate we're spending. We need to stop spending above the rate of inflation. This way we don't have to tax above the rate of inflation. And this way we can improve our economy, make Sault Ste. Marie a better place to do business, and a better place to, for our students to stay, because there'll be the jobs there to keep them there.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Mr. Grandinetti.
I believe the number one issue for youth migration is jobs. There aren't enough jobs for our youth here. Another issue would be offering courses at the university or college that our young children go to school out of town for, because usually when they go to the big city, they get a taste of it. They don't end up coming back. We've got to continue to have good educational institutions. We do have three here, including across, we have three here, including Lake State. Leaving for jobs, education is just what's in a bigger city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. Mrs. McQueen.
Thank you. Our young people can't do well if our community isn't doing well, and this means jobs and quality of life. We need to connect with our youth and ask the question, what do you want to see? When our youth are contributing, they take ownership, and that's where change happens. Our youth needs to know what jobs there will be in the future, and this just isn't involving post-secondary and university. This involves our elementary and our secondary schools, promoting our colleges and universities, and I think our youth need to know too that half of our workforce, or 58%, I believe, are over 40. So they need to know what jobs those are and what they will be in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. Mr. Dumanski.
Well, when I was away at my studies at St. Louis, there was something down in the St. Louis area, it was like an incubus or an incubator, if you will, of businesses. And those businesses shared a large warehouse which facilitated shipping and receiving. Somebody on the phone, it was like a wagon wheel, and everybody fed from that wagon wheel, like a hub. And then there was different businesses that fed each other off the sides. So everybody, it worked in a very nice synergy, and it seemed to be very successful. Taxes were kept down. Now you didn't have a phone bill. You had shipping and receiving. It was just like a big shared community, and they did quite well, actually. The education, again, is a big thing. But never mind the youth onward migration. I'm getting a lot of complaints even from people in the trades that were left out of the high school scenario. So if their parents can't find work here, the kids aren't going to stay here. So maybe more concentration should be keeping jobs in the Soo that from projects that are in the Soo, giving them.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. Mr. Krmpotich.
The out-migration of our city youth is a serious problem, and many that have out-migrated are not coming back to our community. But there are others that have migrated to Southern Ontario and other areas in Canada and now seem to be coming back, and they're coming back because of the extended family. What they're doing is they're having children, and without the extended family being around, it's very hard for them in a dual-income society. I see nothing but opportunity for our young people going forward. I see growth and opportunity. I see our education system here. I see a possible port coming in. I see growth. I look at the airport. We're a board member, and we got 230 jobs out there. I see opportunities happening for our young people that are going to be unprecedented going forward. So the out-migration is going to stop.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. I'll now invite the panel to ask the fourth question of the forum.
This question comes from the Chamber of Commerce. What are the underlying economic and business development challenges facing Sault Ste. Marie, and what actions are necessary in order to increase growth and employment in the community?
Thank you very much. We'll begin with Mr. Grandinetti.
Again, it's jobs. We have to welcome business in this town. We have to cut the red tape. Try to keep our youth here. Invite businesses here. Offer taxes at a discount. Develop some industrial land and whatnot. But the big thing is jobs and taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. Mrs. McQueen.
Thank you. I believe we need to promote and sell Sault Ste. Marie, whether it's for big, small, and the ideal would be another industry to get them here, diversifying and stimulating new investments and entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. Mr. Dumanski.
Every community is suffering the same thing that we are suffering, the decrease of jobs, the outsourcing. But perhaps jobs, and if more jobs were offered, less taxes for people to attract businesses to Sault Ste. Marie. We have a lot of fallow land. We could possibly do that. Economic difficulties. I think in discussing, even with people building, is you're getting a lot of people that are starting to get on the grants and loans scenario, and then some people are left out in the cold, which makes an uneven playing field for some of the developers in town. But a lot of the economic difficulties just revolve around taxes and expense and overhead and PUC rates. Quite simply, try to heat your building and even your house for that matter. So PUC rates should be coming down to facilitate.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. Mr. Krmpotich.
Thank you. I think the EDC plays an important role in our community regarding business and retention and expansion in our community, and it helps drive our community forward. And they must continue to market Sault Ste. Marie in a global economy. I mean, we're the only armored plate and marine plate manufacturer for the military in Canada. And it's important that these kind of things that we do, the EDC continues to help drive these contracts with the government and local business and opportunities for steel production and other areas of business. And you know, the livelihoods of all the community residents are depending on this type of thing. And they must recognize the importance of maintaining the presence of the OLG as well in the Soo, and continue to work with the OLG and do everything they can to include value-added related business supply chains for the OLG. This would benefit our community and enhance the OLG modernization plan.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. Mr. Romano.
I'm going to ask if I can actually hear the question repeated again.
Sure. Can I ask the panel to repeat the question, please?
What are the underlying economic and business development challenges facing Sault Ste. Marie, and what actions are necessary in order to increase growth and employment in the community?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, some of the challenges we've experienced over the last number of years. Esser was once a company employing over 12,000 people. Now it's at 3,500. The OLG in Sault Ste. Marie is a company that, given the goal now, or not the goal, but the movement to modernize and privatize the OLG, potentially costs us further jobs. Our tax rate, being what it is one of the most substantial hurdles that we have to overcome in order to have businesses want to continue to do business in Sault Ste. Marie and boost our economic development. Our rate of spending continues to exceed our revenues. Because of that, we continue to increase our taxes. The tax rate should never increase above the rate of inflation. Inflation should be the barometer with respect to our increases. And at this point, at the rate that we're moving, we continue to we continue to tax ourselves because we are spending too much money. We need to cut the spending so that businesses want to do business in this.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. I'll now invite our panel to ask the fifth question of the forum.
This question comes from the audience. What do you personally feel is the biggest challenge facing Ward 6 specifically?
Thank you. We'll begin with Mrs. McQueen.
I believe that we could be moving Ward 6 forward, and I've heard a lot about our underutilization of our Northern Community Centre. Why can't our West End citizens utilize the centre for walking? I've heard a lot about potholes and cracks in the roads, sidewalks, the amount of time it takes for repairs. I hear about snow removal. So I believe that we could be moving that Ward 6 forward in that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. Mr. Dumanski.
Going around Bayview, the common consensus is the city's forgot about us. The roads are deplorable. The air is less than breathable on many occasions that I was there. So air quality, it depends what part of the ward. I see flooding in groundwater and expensive sewers, storm sewers being placed west of Gooley soon. I alluded to that in my introduction, which is a definite issue. Infrastructure, essential services. That is a large component of the up-and-coming problems. We have to handle them differently. There are alternatives. Other municipalities are doing things different, saving millions of dollars. But it depends what area you're talking about. But essential services and air quality and water, we have to start respecting the sources.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. Mr. Krmpotich.
Thank you for the question. From the people I've spoken with, who are many, the main concerns are coming my way are the roads and resurfacing of the roads. And it doesn't matter what area you go to and talk to, whether it's Bayview, Appaloosa, Ellen Side Road, roads are a big concern. And a lot of issues relating to roads and with the infrastructure, as Bryan noted. There's also concerns regarding, the roads, the culvert issues, the ditches, things like that, snow removal. There's a whole host and myriad, but the main concern is roads and resurfacing of the roads and the traffic. The traffic down some of the roads and the causing of the shaking in the homes with the traffic from the truck traffic, mainly around Allenside Road and Third Line, is impacting on the people there. So the main concerns that I'm getting from residents are roads and resurfacing of the roads.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. Mr. Romano.
Thank you. The main issue I'm hearing from the residents of Ward 6, having again spoken to several thousand of them at this point, still comes down to our economy. That is the number one issue that people are raising to me. This isn't an advanced statistic or anything like that, but I would say approximately 4 in every 5 doors I knock on complain that their kids have left, their kids are out of town, they want their kids to be back home. So that is the number one issue I'm hearing. However, the other issue is what anybody would expect out of their city council and their city councillor, which is responses to concerns about essential city services. My friend, Mr. Krmpotich, just referred to that. Roads, safety on the roads, conditions of the roads, snow removal, ditches, culverts, those are all issues that are being raised as well. And I am committed to responding to people in a timely fashion, showing them the action that's being taken and reporting to them on that action to make sure they know they are heard and their problems are being addressed. Thank you, Mr. Romano. Mr. Grandinetti.
Well, what else can I say? Pretty much road infrastructure, quite a bit of air pollution in the Bayview area, and high taxes. Those are the main concerns that I've been hearing about from the residents of Ward 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. We move on now to question 6. I'll ask our panel to pose the 6th question of the evening.
This question comes from Algoma University. What will you do to fight crime in the city and make sure that Sault Ste. Marie is a safe place in which to live?
Thank you. We'll begin with Mr. Dumanski.
I think the city police are taxed to their limit. They do a good job at the resources that they've been handed. An efficient means of dealing with crime, perhaps deputizing people, citizens, perhaps cameras, perhaps maybe, so this is a tough question. Penalties may be increased. I really don't know, besides putting on a red cape and doing it myself. I really don't know. Honestly, that's a tough question, but prevention and education are probably the 2 best things. Educating children, making even a curfew would probably be a great idea.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. Mr. Krmpotich.
Thank you. I think our police are actually doing a wonderful job in Sault Ste. Marie, although at times they are taxed with resource when they're dealing with issues like homicide and other things. I'm really happy with the expertise that they deliver when they do attend a complaint or a serious crime and how they handle it. Their interpersonal skills, the way they socially handle themselves is I've heard very positive comments about that. I'm happy with our new police chief as well. It's good to see that he had mentioned at council not too long ago, and I remember one thing that really stuck to my head. What he said was, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. And I never forgot that. But as far as I'm concerned, our police are doing a wonderful job. I'm concerned about in busy nights on Friday and Saturday that they haven't got enough people to be able to staff, to be able to deal with the complaints.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. Mr. Romano.
Thank you. Given my profession, I can certainly agree that our police are heavily taxed and they are doing a good job at fighting crime. The difficulty is how much it is escalating. And it is escalating again, and really all of these questions we're going to be addressing this evening will all in some way, shape, or form come back down to our economy. If we improve our economy, if we have people having more money, if they have jobs, they have more money to spend, we have a more vibrant city, people will be spending their money and they won't have to resort to crime. The problem we have right now is that people are feeling squeezed because of poverty, because of job loss, and it's when people are squeezed that they resort to criminal activity or somewhat criminal activity. So we need to improve our economy if we want to reduce the crime rate down the road.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Mr. Grandinetti.
I don't think there's really much that a council could do to combat crime, but work hand in hand with the police. And also, I believe that council, in conjunction with the police, should lobby the provincial government to add stiffer penalties for these youth and adults that are always committing crimes, because it always seems to be the same people that are committing the crimes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. Mrs. McQueen.
Thank you for the question. I believe a good example is the Neighborhood Resource Center, where the police have a presence, and a number of our community agencies are also participating, and they're doing a wonderful job. They're focusing on the positive, engaging youth, positive interaction, prevention, and developing leaders, and I think this is a wonderful example of working with the police.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. I'll invite our next panelist to pose question number 7.
This question is from the Chamber of Commerce. What services by our city should be delivered more effectively and how?
Could you repeat the question, Eva, please? Thank you.
What city services should be delivered more effectively and how?
Thank you. We'll begin with Mr. Krmpotich.
Thank you. I would expect that all our city services that we deliver are delivered efficiently to each and every household of every constituent throughout our community. I mean, providing safe drinking water, whether the utilities come and you click your light on and it turns on. Those type of things are very important. When we have snow removal, these type of services, and having the trucks out and doing the plowing and ensuring that culverts are free with drainage in the springtime. I mean, all these services are essential to be able to have a thriving community. And I'm hoping going forward that we always got to look at continuous improvement and efficiencies. And we expect all the departments that they continually do that, and we do request them in council on a regular basis to report on the efficiencies that they identified to service the public.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. Mr. Romano.
Given the nature of the concerns I've heard speaking to residents, and as well the obvious issues in the city, excuse me, the most fundamental one, of course, is the provision of water, the most essential city service we have. That is something that certainly we want to see improved, and we want to see improved quickly. And I think in terms of that issue, we want to have some clear lines of communication with the people of Sault Ste. Marie to make sure that they understand what is being done to rectify the problem and how long it's going to take, and so that we can properly gauge our expectations with respect to that. The other areas I hear a lot of concerns over, of course, again, is road maintenance, snow removal. Those are things that hearing a lot of complaints about, and those are things that could be improved. One area that I took some concern with was ditch cleaning, which is difficult to manage, but that's another area that perhaps we could be a little bit more efficient on.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Mr. Grandinetti.
Can you repeat the question, please?
What city services should be delivered more effectively and how?
One of the biggest complaints I'm hearing is the infrastructure, the potholes, the ditch cleaning. Another big one is transit, is someone can't get from point A to point B in a fair amount of time. We have our son who goes to Sault College. It would take him about 10 to 15 minutes to get there with the bus, and then it would take him about an hour and a half to get home. I think, from listening to some people, I think that's the area that needs to be most improved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. Mrs. McQueen.
Thank you. Again, with the issues in Ward 6, I'm hearing taxes versus services, potholes, cracks in the roads, sidewalks and streetlights, the amount of time it takes for repairs. The street is dug up and it might take weeks or even months to finish the job. Snow removal, why is the city reactive instead of proactive? Removing the snow so there isn't flooding and removing the snowbanks. And I'm also hearing about communication and the sharing of information that isn't a strong point in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. Mr. Dumanski.
With the proactive snow removal is a very good point. I've had a lot of people complain about the buildup of snow over grates in front of their house, especially in the early spring, is a complaint, and then the flooding that ensues is just that much more work for the city services. There's a ditch. The culverts should be cleaned out a little more to ensure that the Brookfield, the drainage system over there, is up to par. Apparently, I was around a couple days ago, and there's a clog underneath Wallace Terrace right now. So maybe you could look after that. However, the ditch cleaning, snow removal, road maintenance, I think they're doing a pretty good job at the delivery of services. But again, how much service you want, how much taxes do you spend? I know the use of salt and gravel is it doesn't hold very well, but the city continues to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. I'll invite our next panelist to ask the next question of the evening. Question number 8.
This question comes from the audience. How is your leadership style similar to or different than retiring councillor Frank Manzo?
Thank you. We'll begin with Mr. Romano.
Thank you very much. You know, I like that question. I've knocked, again, on several doors, and almost every, let's say every second or third door, you've got someone talking about Frank and how he did things. I was told a story just a couple of nights ago by someone who said he came to the door with 3 sheets of paper. You know, he had the white, the pink, and the yellow, and he would write his notes on the paper and hand you one copy, and one would go off to, let's say, the Board of Works or the Planning Department, wherever it was. And I thought, what a great way to do things. That's excellent. But I relate it back to how I would do it in terms of my profession and what I'm required to do on a day in, day out basis. Somebody calls, has a concern, I have to take the call. I have to respond. It's a matter of professionalism that you return a call within 24 hours. Then you must respond to the call. Beyond responding to the call, you must actually take action and record it and report to the person and let them know what you're doing and what is being done and follow up. And I'm committed to doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Mr. Grandinetti.
I had the opportunity to work with Councillor Manzo from 2006 to 2010, and I did learn a lot. The guy remembers everything. He explained quite a bit to us, taught us about how to do things, how to treat the constituent when they call, and to get back to them in a timely fashion and listen to their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. Mrs. McQueen.
Well, Frank is our local historian, and he did a very, very good job of representing Ward 6. He was there, and I think that that's what you have to do. You have to be there for the constituents, you have to listen, and you have to answer their concerns in a timely manner. And thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. Mr. Dumanski.
Can you repeat the question? No, just kidding.
Repeat the question, please, Carter.
No, that's right. Answering phone calls in a timely manner. I would say less than 24 hours. In my office, I've been doing that for 14 years. Sometimes 24 hours doesn't cut it. As soon as you got a spare moment, as soon as time will allow, as soon as it's conveniently possible, answer question. Get resolved. Don't just answer a question or ask pertinent questions you have to ask, but answering a phone call and following it through to give the person resolved. Remember, first and foremost, you are here to represent the constituents of a ward, and that's it. The buck stops between you and the constituent. Nothing else should be interfering with the decision-making process. Absolutely nothing. You are a servant, plain and simple. And I think that's what I got out of Frank anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. Mr. Krmpotich.
Thank you. I've absolutely enjoyed working with Councillor Manzo for the past 4 years. It has been a very interesting experience, and we did work as a team. And he has taught me a whole host of things. history with our ward, history with our community, and he has advised me on many occasions. The knowledge he has, it's going to be missed. And to tell you the truth, I wish he was 20 years younger and we had another 4 years with him, because that would be phenomenal. As far as the working as a team with Councillor Manzo, the 24-hour follow-up, we try to do that on a regular basis. But when I went away on vacation, I called Frank and I told Frank, I'm going away on vacation, can you take the calls? And vice versa. So we work together as a team, and like I said, I'm going to really miss that man. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. I'll invite the panel to ask question number 9.
This question is from Algoma University. Where do you think the city's budget ought to be trimmed or redirected? Do you think taxpayer dollars are being wasted anywhere?
Thank you. We'll begin with Mr. Grandinetti.
Yes, I do think taxpayer dollars are being wasted, and I won't comment on where they are being wasted. Back in the budget could be trimmed. We would have to work with the finance committee would have to work with the finance department and the workers of City Hall to see where we could save money. These are the people that are on the front lines. Back in, I believe, in 2008, we were going to farm out the garbage trucks, and lo and behold, here we are ready to make a deal to farm out the garbage trucks, and the next thing you know, we're buying 2 trucks. The price of one of those trucks, we could have got garbage service, a truck, and I believe 2 workers for 1 year. I believe, like I said earlier, I believe we should start asking the city employees where we could trim our costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. Mrs. McQueen.
Thank you. We need to open our books, and we need to look at every revenue and expenditure that comes into the city. It needs to be scrutinized. Where we could cut, I can't tell you right now, because I haven't sat at City Council. I know at the school board, we have 2 representatives on our finance committee, our audit committee, and they're outside, they're in the community, they're community participants, and they have a say, and I think that would be something that we could look at the city to see what's important to the citizens of Sault Ste. Marie.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. Mr. Dumanski.
Every non-essential service should be scrutinized, and perhaps some jobs that are redundant, we might be absorbing them through, I guess, attrition. Just don't replace the folks as they retire. That seems to be a good way of trimming some fat off the top, being top heavy. As far as any other non-essential service, they should be looking at and seeing where fat could be trimmed and concentrate on specifically essential services. Any perks, just like a household, are taken away. We have to get lean and mean. The leaders of this municipality should be they should be leading by example, right? That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. Mr. Krmpotich.
Regarding the wasting of taxpayers' dollars, our city council has told the city staff to identify all deficiencies, and they're identified at regular city council meetings. As far as farming out a garbage truck or the drivers and the trucks themselves, I'm concerned with that because there are union contracts that we have to abide by as a community. These are union contracts, they're binding, and we cannot break them. City Council also is working with staff to continuously improve and look at efficiencies. I mean, we have to do that. Why wouldn't we? And not only that, if we can identify any technological changes that can identify an efficiency and reduce the cost for the ratepayers, we're going to be doing that. I mean, we'd be foolish not to.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. Mr. Romano.
Thank you. Again, spending is where it all starts. Improving our economy starts with reducing our spending. We cannot continue to spend more money than the rate of inflation, and we have been. If you look at our budget, a number of years ago, we were 165 million. Now we're at 185 million. We are spending more than the rate of inflation. We continue to spend like this, and then we have to increase our taxes in order to make up for that lost, for that deficit. We need to stop spending, absolutely. How do we cut? Where do we cut from? We need to be more fiscally responsible. We need to reduce our spending by adopting a culture of continuous improvement. We need to adopt new technologies. We need to look for new and efficient and innovative ways to do things. We need to look at what we're doing, and we need to try to do it better. The status quo cannot be good enough. We need to constantly strive for continuous improvement.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. I'll invite our panel to now ask the 10th question of the evening.
This question comes from the Chamber of Commerce. How do you intend to support or assist the needs of seniors and youth in your community?
Well, thank you very much. We'll begin the answers to this question with Mr. Dumanski. Oh, sorry. Am I mixed up here? Mrs. McQueen?
Okay. Thank you very much. 20% of our population is 65 and older. And walking the ward again, I'm hearing about taxes and the ability to pay these taxes or the ability to make choices on heating and food and what they're going to do. In our community, our seniors are living longer and they want to be as independent as possible. But some families struggle because of jobs, children, and grandchildren. And I believe that we need to provide the services of falls prevention, nutrition, and the ability to help them stay in their homes a lot longer. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. Mr. Dumanski.
I would be for a tax freeze for all seniors in their own home, a land tax freeze. I would be for subsidizing transportation. I know there's a program that I've used for people on disability for a nutritional supplement. I would be all for that as well, because you'd be surprised the amount of seniors in this city that do not eat properly. And eating properly just facilitates their healing capacity and day-to-day ventures and whatnot. And I think these fine folks have paid their fair share of taxes, and now it's their turn for us to come up to bat. You can always judge a community by the way it treats its elderly and its animals.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dumanski. Mr. Krmpotich.
Thank you. Keeping care of our seniors is probably one of the most important things that we can do as a community. Part of an action item with the recent age-friendly Sault Ste. Marie Community Assessment Report was a recommendation that transit services assess the current routes to ensure that they are vital and in high demand and provide quick and easy access to community and health services. This would help our senior citizens. As well, you know, like Wanda was saying, 20% of our senior citizens right now are over the age of 65, 20% of our population. That's a big concern, and every one of them are living on limited income. And like was expressed, I have to agree, they want to stay in their homes as long as possible, and we should be doing everything we can to keep them there. There's also concerns with seniors regarding limited care as far as staff goes with the people in the old people.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. Mr. Romano.
Again, first and foremost, I think it comes down to our economy again. It's kind of, like I said earlier, it's one of these issues that it affects everything in our city. Our taxes are too high. Seniors are being taxed out of their homes. This is a concern I'm hearing on a regular basis at the doors from the majority of the seniors I'm speaking to. These people can't afford to live because of the rate of taxation. there is the way we combat against that again is by reducing the taxes. There is another issue that people have raised to me, seniors have raised, and that's a concern with respect to their lawn care, especially as it relates to the ditches, how they get their lawnmower into the ditch, being plus 65 years old, or snow removal with the amount of snow that's left at the end of their driveway. And I understand there is a program the city is offering that has approximately $100,000 there to assist in that. That's a good way to give back to the seniors, I would think, and help them in their essential services.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Mr. Grandinetti.
I think that keeping taxes low, making it affordable for them to stay in their home as long as possible. One major concern would be to increase the parabus service. I believe there was an age-friendly report that was just tabled. We should follow through some of the recommendations that go with it. And one big thing is between the city and the province, there should be some types of subsidization that for in-home service for the seniors, whether it be grass, lawn mowing, snow blowing, or even go in-house and clean their homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. I'll now invite our panel to pose the following question, question number 11.
This question comes from Algoma University. What will you do to make Sault Ste. Marie a greener, more environmentally friendly city?
Thank you. We'll begin with Mr. Dumanski.
Greener, more environmentally friendly. I would just change the way that a lot of developers are developing their property, and I alluded to that again in my handout. Groundwater diversion and green spaces are saving communities millions of dollars because now you don't have this infrastructure that you have to build. You don't have to rip out roads. You don't have to put in storm sewers. You're depending on a green space and a catch basin. Walmart's doing it. Home Depot's doing it because they're reaping the benefits of on-site water handling. So that would help, possibly planting more trees. Boy, oh boy, there's a myriad of things that you can do. But those would be actually, you'd get two benefits from those because you'd be saving tax dollars, plus you'd be making communities greener and subdivisions, actually.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. Mr. Krmpotich.
Thank you. Sustainability in our green agenda, green jobs, green spaces, houses and buildings. These are all significant for our community in building a green agenda. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have a great debate there about the urban density and urban sprawl. We need balanced development also with land use for agriculture and parks. And taking a look at our local recycling program, which may be an opportunity to include organics and solids. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. Mr. Romano.
Thank you. Well, we need to start by developing a green energy plan. We've done some studies for the Canal District, and this is a good start. But we need a plan of action to actually put this into put it into action. Of course, we want more green spaces to give us that visual appearance of green. I think, especially in our downtown areas, parkettes, trees, flowers, those types of things will give us that visual green that's important. In addition, we need to look at green energy, or in terms of conservation, I should say, energy conservation. Again, we want to strive for continuous improvement. We want to use innovative and efficient ways to provide services. A simple example is moving towards LED streetlights. That would save us a lot of money down the long run. Certainly there's some significant costs up front, but significant savings down the road, and again, being more efficient and saving money in the long run and being more green. Those are a couple of, or at least one idea that could assist in that regard.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Mr. Grandinetti.
We should continue advances in recycling, include more materials that we could recycle. Look at switching our transit system, our buses, and whatever vehicles we can to either compressed natural gas or liquid natural gas, which most of the big cities are doing throughout North America. Encourage more cycling, less vehicles. Create efficient city-owned buildings, a better composting system, and we must become as efficient as we can, continue to look at other cities at what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. Mrs. McQueen.
Thank you. We have some companies that are leading the way, and I believe when we talk about jobs and the future, I believe that's where the jobs will be, is in green energy. I agree with what's been said about encouraging more recycling and exploring best practices and encouraging more efficiency in our new builds. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now ask our panel to pose the 12th question of the evening, please.
This question comes from Algoma University. Algoma University has recently seen a significant rise in international students. What will you do to help make Sault Ste. Marie a welcoming and inclusive community for international workers and students?
Thank you very much. We'll begin with Mr. Krmpotich.
In June of this year, through the local immigration partnership and its subcommittee, the Racial Harmony Committee, and through the United Nations, the city joined the Canadian Coalition of Municipalities Against Racism and Discrimination. And we have developed our city's immigration site, Discovery the Sioux, and must continue to work with our international students and our newcomers to make them feel needed and wanted, to show them that we care. I mean, after all, most of our doctors and professional people are newcomers to our city. And with the declining birth rates and an aging population becoming more welcoming and all-inclusive in this city, we deeply care that there is no racism or discrimination to any individuals or newcomers coming into our community.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. Mr. Romano.
Excuse me. Yes, there has been a significant increase in our international students. That's a huge credit that we owe to Algoma University for promoting the way they have been, bringing in the programming to attract these students into our community. It's an amazing thing to see for Sault Ste. Marie, having been a graduate of Algoma University. The diversification that it's providing is diversifying our city and doing great things for our community. How do we make it better for them? Sorry, excuse me. We want to have a more vibrant downtown. We want to have more things for them to do, for everyone to do. We want more multicultural associations for them to participate in. We want to create as friendly of an atmosphere as we can. A study done by Sioux College said that for every student who comes to our community, they invest $35,000 into the local economy. It's a significant number, so we want more. We want to foster that relationship, and we want to do more to make it a more enjoyable place for students to come to.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Mr. Grandinetti.
I would, to make it better for the immigrant students here, just welcome them with open arms. They're no different than we are. Invite them over to our homes or to different community functions. Go to their sporting events. I see that the West End Community Center that there's, I guess they're doing cricket or something. So we should go and with them and welcome them and welcome their sport into our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. Mrs. McQueen.
Thank you very much. I believe growing our population of our colleges and universities is the way to go. I believe that we should be building partnerships, we should be all-inclusive, and we should be welcoming any person who wants to come to school in Sault Ste. Marie.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. Mr. Dumanski.
Well, I would celebrate their sports, I'd fly their flags, I'd show their movies, and I would honor their religions, first and foremost, because there's no really separation between a lot of the Eastern cultures, religion and culture. It's very, very meshed. They have a very, I had an opportunity to meet a lot of the Saudis from Algoma University with the cricket, and they're a very interesting, very well-educated lot, and we are very lucky to have them here. People from Pakistan and the Saudis, they are today's what my relatives were. They are the new Polish, Ukrainian, Italians. So yes, open arms, definitely, 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. I'll now invite our next panelist to pose the 13th question of this evening's forum.
This question comes from the Chamber of Commerce. It was recently announced that the Port of Algoma will be subject to an environmental assessment. If the port is approved and constructed, it can be expected to increase traffic and heavy truck traffic in your ward significantly. What will your position be if asked to vote in support of the port?
Thank you. We'll begin with Mr. Romano.
Can I have that question again?
Sure. Eva, would you mind asking that question again, please?
It was recently announced that the Port of Algoma is to be subject to an environmental assessment. If the port is approved and constructed, it can be expected to significantly increase traffic and heavy truck traffic in your ward. What will your position be if asked to vote in support of the port?
My position is that the port is a development that this city has been waiting for years. I think it's a very positive thing for our city. I think I get very excited thinking about it, the potential for what it can bring to Sault Ste. Marie. It is something significant. The concept of having vessels that can go through the St. Lawrence and into the ocean. Think of the possibilities, what that can bring for Sault Ste. Marie. So yes, it's going to tax our roads. Yes, it's going to cause difficulties because of the heavy truck traffic. But it's one of those things that I think we have to focus on our infrastructure and make sure that we accommodate our infrastructure to try to minimize the difficulties that will come from it, because the end goal is so much more positive and so much more enlightening, and one of the greatest things that this community has had moving forward for as long as I can remember.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Mr. Grandinetti.
Well, I'm looking forward to the construction of this port. Let's not all forget where it started. Many years ago, this was a dream of the late Mayor John Rosewell. This is what he wanted for the community, and it's happening in front of us now. Where I would start with the heavy truck traffic is reducing the speeds on Allen Side Road, second line, and also looking at different transportation routes that would take a lot of the traffic off of second line, which is heavily used at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. Mrs. McQueen.
Thank you. I would also support the Deepwater Port. I think it's a positive for our city. We talk about jobs, we talk about growth, and we talk about moving this city forward. This isn't going to be realized for 8 to 10 years, but it's certainly a positive. And I think that we could be looking at the infrastructure and working with our Board of Works and as Mr. Grandinetti said about the speed and stuff like that. I think they're all workable solutions.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. Mr. Dumanski.
Yeah, and speaking with a few people regarding the Port of Algoma and this romantic affair that we have with this docking, there's a lot of questions that I have. Being one, the 26.5-foot draft at the Detroit Sarnia, the tunnel under. 26.5 feet, that's all you got. We can have a 40-foot draft over here. What good is that? Those ships will only be going west. Loading, the efficiency of loading, unloading, and loading again on rail car. That hasn't been looked at. I think this is really premature for us to be sinking our teeth into something right now. Maybe it's not what people want to hear, but that's reality. And when you speak with people that know the business, as far as these 1,700 jobs, that's just fuzzy math. There's no way you can get near that, and that's not me saying it. So I think we have a lot of homework to do before we jump into this.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. Mr. Krmpotich.
Thank you. We were really happy to hear about the expanded harbor, and it was identified as a high priority for our city. It's going to help boost steel production and add more marine traffic, and Tenaris will also increase their production, and it's going to add to the employment and which will increase our economy for sure. The very next step forward will be the growth of our community. But as far as the area residents and with the infrastructure and the roads, it's very important that we communicate with them and keep them involved And we're going to have to be meeting with them on a regular basis and giving them updates and communicating what's going on in order to be able to take care of their needs going forward with this, with the harbor.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. I'll now invite the next panelist to ask the 14th question of the evening. This will be the final question of the evening, the question and answers section of tonight's forum, after which we will move into closing remarks.
This question comes from the Chamber of Commerce. What steps will you take to work constructively with your colleagues from other wards to benefit the city?
Thank you. We will begin with Mr. Grandinetti.
What steps? I believe working, getting along is the biggest thing of working with the colleagues from other wards. Trying to work together to be on the same page with most development within our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. Mrs. McQueen.
I believe you need to keep an open mind. You need to listen and be very respectful. I don't say that you will always agree with even your counterpart or the other ward councillors, but I believe that you need to be respectful and keep an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. Mr. Dumanski.
I think respect first and foremost for other people's decisions. Even though their decision's not maybe what you're thinking, there'll always be a common ground and expectations for your ward and for the city as a whole. And if you build on the nucleus of a common ground being good for your constituents, I think that common ground would result in a very good relationship, professional relationship, and maybe personal relationship. There's a lot of good characters on city council that I know, and I talk with a few of them and get along quite well. Getting along with people really isn't very difficult. Sometimes difficult personalities, but that just makes life interesting. Thank goodness we're all different. Common ground, and that's it. Common ground, and know why we're here for the people of Sault Ste. Marie.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. Mr. Krmpotich.
Yes, the mayor and all of the current council members have shown leadership and passion, and every one of them are hardworking, and I know that for a fact. And it's been a pleasure working with each and every one of them, and we do communicate on a very regular basis. It's a team effort. The benefit at the end of the day is our community. And we hope to provide that kind of a service as a team effort to get everybody to where they got to go. It's no different than dealing with my ward mate, with Councillor Manzo. We work as a team, council works as a team, and you have to work as a team with everybody. That's management and staff, and it's all the employees. Everybody has to work as a team together to get to where we got to be.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. Mr. Romano.
Thank you. Most of the comments already been said. I've been covering it all, covering this well. I touched it in my opening remarks. Again, it's working together as a group. How can we possibly get anything accomplished if we're arguing amongst each other? We're never going to be able to move forward the city's agenda. We're never going to be able to improve this city and make it a better place to be. We need to work together. You need to work together as a team. Again, my friends have said it well. I think the key issues here are listening to each other, respecting each other, utilizing the expertise of each and every individual on council. Sometimes you may not agree with their opinions, but it doesn't mean that you don't take them, that you don't listen to them and appreciate them. There are our council just sitting at this table here. You look at the multitude of different people we have here. Everybody has something to bring to the table, and we need to work together to move our city forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. This concludes the question and answer portion of this evening's forum. We'll move now to closing statements. Closing statements will be presented by the candidates in reverse order to the opening statements. So we'll begin with our first closing statement by Mrs. Wanda McQueen.
Thank you. I first want to say thank you to my husband and family for their support. And I also want to thank the Ward 6 residents who have been talking to me as I walk the ward. If elected, it is my job to be answerable to you, the Ward 6 constituents. Your issues are my issues. Whether that issue is big or small, it is important to you or you wouldn't be concerned about it. As a lifelong resident of Ward 6, I am passionate about Ward 6. I will listen and work with you to address your concerns. It is important for our community's future and our future to move this city forward. On October 27th, I respectfully ask for your support. In closing, I would like to thank Mr. Manzo, our local historian, for his years of dedication, and I wish him all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. We now move to the closing statement by Mr. Ozzie Grandinetti.
I stand before you tonight as a resident, father, husband, friend, and neighbor. I stand here wanting only the best of our community and our children's future. As a lifelong resident, I love our community, but more importantly, I want my children and your children to grow here and to contribute to the future of this great community. Over the past few months, I've spoken to many residents. I've been door to door every day, rain or shine. I have led a very dedicated campaign, and I am dedicated to representing the residents of Sault Ste. Marie. I believe the residents want a councillor that will get back to them each and every day. They want a councillor that will support development proposals that have been recommended by the planning department. I will be that councillor. I will always be accessible, and I will always get back to everyone. I will support development projects which will bring revenue to help our city grow. This is our community. Let's make it flourish. On October 27th, vote Ozzie Grandinetti for Ward 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. We'll now hear the closing statement from Mr. Ross Romano.
Thank you. During this election, I've woken up every morning thinking of what a great opportunity I have to make a difference in this community. Sault Ste. Marie is the city I love, and Ward 6 is the place that I've always considered to be home. Over the course of the last 4 weeks, I've been knocking on doors, and if I haven't reached you yet, I promise I will be there. During this time, I've had the humbling opportunity to meet thousands of Ward 6 residents, and I've learned so much from you all, and I thank you for that. I've spoken to many people who are so proud to call Sault Ste. Marie and Ward 6 their home, but we all share the same belief. We need to be better. We have a lot of work to do. At the doors, you've told me that you want a councillor who is going to listen to you, who will respond to you, and who will take action to resolve your concerns. You've told me you want a councillor who will build, not continue to reopen old debates, procrastinate, and divide instead of building our ward and our community as a whole. If elected, with your help, that is exactly what we are going to do. On October 27th, I ask that you vote for me, Ross Romano, and give me an opportunity to make Ward 6 a better place to live and raise your family.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. We'll now hear the closing statements from Mr. Joe Krmpotich.
Thank you. Just in closing, I'd like to thank all the sponsors for the event, the Chamber of Commerce, Algoma University, Shock TV, and Local 2. And I want to congratulate Frank Manzo on his retirement as Ward 6 councillor and thank him for his many dedicated years of service to Ward 6 in the city of Sault Ste. Marie. I would also like to thank Frank for his continued mentoring, and I want to wish all candidates good luck, and I thank them for putting their names forward. I think it's important that City Council and councillors in each ward work together as a team, and whether it's growing our economy, job creation, dealing with unemployment, repairing our aging infrastructure, or seniors on limited income, these things are important to all of us. The reasons for seeking re-election as councillor of Ward 6 are simple. I'm a people person and I care deeply about our community and the people who live in it. Thank you for allowing me to speak here today, and I ask that you re-elect Joe Krmpotich for Ward 6 councillor on October 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. Finally, the closing statements from Mr. Bryan Dumanski.
Family and friends of Ward 6, you have a decision to make. For the most part, you have been fortunate in your representation. You expect 100% representation, 24/7. That representation must not be filtered through corporate, political, or any other affiliation that has been known to interfere with the role of a councillor. I eat from no corporate plate or no political hand. My loyalty is to you and to you alone. You call me at 5 o'clock in the morning for snow removal, make me coffee, and I'll be there myself. It would be an honor and a privilege to represent Ward 6 in City Council. I had the honor and privilege of conversing with many of you over very heartfelt situations, concerns, questions, comments, cries of anguish. For the next 4 years, I will bring honor and integrity to the job as a councillor if you elect me to be your representative at City Hall. Thank you very much for your consideration and support.
Thank you, Mr. Dumanski. On behalf of the Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce, Algoma University, Shaw TV, and Local 2, I would like to thank our candidates for taking part in this evening's forum. Thank you to all who attended our session in council chambers tonight and to our viewing audience. We hope you've enjoyed our series of election forums with the candidates seeking election for city council and mayor positions. Let's give all of the candidates tonight a round of applause. Thank you to all of you who attended our session in council chambers and our viewing audience. We extend our thanks to Shaw TV as well, Local 2, and the news media for their support. Before we go tonight, we'd like to note to Sault Ste. Marie Chamber members that we will be providing chamber members with further communications and a follow-up survey to these events. Finally, we remind and encourage all of you to get out and vote on October 27th. Thank you and good night.